So, new year, and I guess I forgot to put this in 4K last week. This guy. Anyway, hey everybody, what's up? This is Retrokid Reviews. Hopefully, this is not looking a little too overshadowy with the angle here than usual to finish my top fives for the year of 2023 now in the new year. Yeah, that the rules of the road for people who are new to my channel, yeah, my top five lists take a little bit longer, sometimes a week or two into the new year, so the fact that I got one in before New Year's last week was pretty much a miracle for my channel, nonetheless. So before we get to that, I just want to praise mostly my subscribers for once. I want to thank you again for getting me into 500 subs last year. That was amazing, and I cannot believe I'm almost there on that 1K grind. So thank you again for that, as always. Figures wise, there's not going to be a lot of top 5 figures of the year because most of them were, like I said, were Marvel Legends adjacent. But given that it's been very X-Men heavy thanks to Fall of X this year, the top 5 is going to be pretty obvious there. No promises if that's going to be a poll or anything like that. If you want to see top 5 figures that I've had, please go to my top 5 figure forms of my channel's history. That is a better representation of how I would normally do my critiquing with just trying to build figure forms for myself when I do figure reviews. Yeah, and there will be more lore with that as well. So with that all being said, figures aside, speaking of, more on the Super 7 watch, as in, how am I going to put I cannot believe my family found a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive as a retail release of the Super 7 Black and Gold Dragon Zord. I have a lot to say about this figure when I get it down to the basement, mainly because I'm going to be using that for most of my Nerf reviews, hopefully, in 2024. And for this behemoth of a Megazord, yeah, I'm going to try to do my best to find a spot for it, try to make it more like the miniatures you saw on the Sentai footage with Mighty Morphin back in the day. Speaking of, I have yet to unopen the Super 7 Green Ranger that you see here, and the General Grievous of the room, a good collection. Well, I'm trying to remember my Grievous quotes, so I'll try to brush up on that when I do. Like I said, reviews of both of those. Those will definitely be here in the, I guess, studio bedroom as usual, as far as my usual layout goes. But like I said, for the Dragon Zord, that is primarily going to be basement heavy, and I'm trying to have a diorama set up for that, if anything else. So with the channel business news out of the way, let's get to the honorable mentions for the best list for mainly TV shows that I've seen all throughout this year. It's going to be a toss-up between the current Doctor Who specials, and since I'm here, I would like to do a mini review for the Christmas special. Shuti did a great job, as usual, being the new Doctor, his new companion, Ruby Sunday, if I got her name right. Character-wise, don't know actress-wise, I'll leave the cast IMDb down below. Was fantastic, to borrow from another Ninth Doctor here. No updates if Christopher Eccleston is still bitter for the whole thing, but if there's an update, I'll leave it in the post, in the description as usual. That being said, there was a whole musical section midway through the Christmas special. I was like, oh, this might go places, and then Shuji just like one update pretty like spectacularly, I'm gonna be honest with you. It has a lot of good setup what will be the rest of his tenure going on. And yeah, I'm interested to see how far this new 15th Doctor will go, and I cannot wait to see more. Speaking of waiting to see more, go to my reviews for the first 3 specials, because they are now officially are in the honorable mentions for this year. And seeing David come back in between the Whittaker era and going into Shuti era was a very nice transitional period. It's a good flex for Russell to show, like, him trying to get his, like, flowers for that had tenure before going into a new one. Like, he just wanted to cash in that nostalgia now before we have to go into the new era. And it was a good kind of way to do it without having to, like, dehumanize anybody in the cast or anything like that. Especially with Wolford, like I said in the reviews, I mentioned that they did a pretty good job respecting his passing when they were bringing him in for those last 3 specials. So, again, go to my review there. Last up in the honorable mentions, and I'm still proud that I got a review of Cosmic Fury out of the way. Again, go to my one last scene in Nando V Movies playlist. If it's not in the cards, I'll leave the playlist as usual in the description down below. And yeah, like I said with the season proper, it's a good conclusion to this era of the team. Will it be a good conclusion for Power Rangers as a whole for now, like I said. And I don't know where Netflix is going to be reboot wise. I don't know if any of the showrunners that they're planning are going to be still going forward with it. I know Hasbro is going to have a bit of a pause, I guess figures wise, as far as Lightning Collection goes. I hope not in the roleplay case, because I still want to get that Master Morpher of Tommy's before that gets way out of proportions as far as JDF prices go post his passing nowadays. So, like I said, it's still a good team despite the new American footage only forms, despite having to use Q Ranger Zords and all that stuff. And a lot of good callbacks to a lot of people you didn't think would come back midway through this season. So again, if you're a fan of this team before coming into Cosmic Fury, you get to see basically this version of the team come as their own and be more comfortable with the characters that they've been playing for now 3 seasons. And I think previous Nick to Netflix era teams or even Hasbro era teams ever got a chance to do. So that's where I kind of stand there. So hopefully, like I said, I hope Netflix continues to make any new Power Rangers content in general. I hope I will see it regardless. I will review it here on the channel regardless. Last up in my movie playlist and my best of worst there, I forgot to mention my thoughts on Godzilla -1. Yeah, I haven't yet to see it, but I'm very much aware of the reports that it might get Oscar attention. They have it for your consideration. I don't know if it's going to make it to the Oscars. I would totally see it getting effects awards at the Golden Globes and anything else. So, that's surprising. As someone who's known a little bit about kaiju lore in the tokusatsu side of things, I'm very much a Sentai writer here. But the fact that the King of the Monsters is this close to getting his flowers in a Western award show shows a lot of how impressive -1 is. Still currently in theaters as of this recording. So if you haven't seen it, please go see it if you can. This is my recommendation, and I have yet to review it. Keep in mind, I have yet to review it or see it, and I'm hearing nothing but good positive vibes when it comes to this movie. So go there if you can. So for the secret recommendation out of the way, let's get to the best list. Coming in at number 5, I had to swap last minute, even as of recording this list. Is going to be The Bear Season 2. Now, the reason being is that I didn't finish seeing the full season. My mom did, and she loved every minute of it. I am very much aware of the Christmas flashback episode with a lot of surprise characters and surprise guest stars that even I didn't even see coming, personally speaking. So I'm going to leave that as a spoiler... less spoilery than usual. Sorry for the coffee throat. I just woke up out of a New Year's party with my brother's in-laws. And it was a fun time. A lot better positive vibes going into the new year. I'll say that to them at the very least. So, with that said, going on to number 4, from like 4 to 2 down is basically the same thing till we get to number 1, because I actually saw the number 1 show last minute before finishing the list here. So, Loki Season 2. All, like I said in the previous video, all of my reviews will be in the description down below because I don't have time for the cards. So, what haven't I said about the second season that hasn't already been said since the post-Jonathan Majors situation? It is basically a good send-off for Loki, more or less, if they don't use him in Secret Wars. With the throne, in the finale when he was building the time throne, is a very good emotional moment for him. My only gripe is that I didn't see enough Sylvie to basically close out her whole end of her backstory and all that stuff. No other Loki variants this season other than her, and you can definitely tell it's basically the Kang show for a very good reason to set him up before the whole Jonathan Majors situation. That being said, for what you had, Victor Timely was a very surprising comical character, and you could kind of see like him working into being the He Who Remains of it all. Later in the season, you can see like what could have happened if they stopped out, what would happen if they did, kind of situations. And I'm just gonna say, Old Wilson and the Ski-Doo, this late in his career, is pretty much the peak comedy he used to be back in the 2000s, in probably the best ways. Weird as it sounds. So, with all the non-spoilery stuff out of the way, speaking of Marvel content, I have yet to do a full review of What If Season 2. The only episode I saw with my family was, I think, the Christmas episode with the villain from, Hammer, Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2 coming back for like a Die Hard essentially episode. So long story short, will that be another tease for my retro review for Die Hard before the beginning of this new year. Fingers crossed. Still want to do that, even though I just missed the anniversary last year. So, who knows? So, on to my number 3 for the best movies is gonna be surprising, and I think even in my list, I screamed how it's going to be One Piece Season 1. Full disclosure, I have yet to or seen any of the anime itself. I'm only trying to sit through most of the beginning arcs on my personal binge. I know Razzle has done their Twitch streams for most of like the arcs they're already brushed up on. I think there are a lot. I think they've up to like a lot of the core characters that I might be seeing in season 2 later this year. So hopefully I'll get a better broad picture when it comes to that. As for the season itself, it is surprisingly a good entry point for myself as a now 33. Sorry, next year I'm going to be 33. 32-year-old guy who has never seen One Piece a day in his life. Getting to the point of pretty much realizing this series was going to be unbeginnerable or even approachable. The fact that this live action show pretty much beat all those, I guess, standards and norms and broken anime curse when it comes to live action adaptations is kind of surprising. And honestly, it was this close to getting to number 2. But like I said, even the fact that it's at 3, how did they do it? Congratulations to the showrunner, who I think is also a fan of the series, which is probably a good reason why it's this accurate for those who are new to the manga and anime like myself. I highly recommend the behind the scenes footage now that the strikes is over. You get to see the actors themselves have a fun time talking about their experience making the show. I will say this, for the actor who plays Luffy, he embodied the role in more ways than I thought he normally would, speculating why he's coming into the strikes, now post-strikes. Oh, he was born to play Luffy no matter what. So, I'll leave it at that for those who haven't seen the show. For those who haven't seen it, like I said, it is worth the watch. It's a good digestion into getting into One Piece. I am not a huge fan. I'm not going to turn into a huge fan, but then again, I said that with Critical Role, so who am I to judge? So, on to the last 2 in the best list before we get to the fun part. Ahsoka Season 1. Yeah, this was a very hard ask for a lot of Star Wars TV this year. I was this close to doing Mando Season 3, but then looking back, there wasn't a lot subplot-wise that I will remember. The only reason why I put Ahsoka here is because a lot of people in that cast put a lot of love into it, and the fact that of Rey's passing was pretty haunting and prevalent coming into the marketing for the show was showing. Rosario Dawson did a great job being Ahsoka Tano as usual. If you've seen her only in her Mando appearances, you get a better scope of what she was coming into like the Clone Wars side of her life and stuff like that. And shout outs to the kid actor who played this Clone Wars era Ahsoka. She basically was living up to the standards I think the voice actress and Rosario nowadays has been doing. And the fact that I got to see Hayden Christensen come back here as a Force Ghost in a good light post-original trilogy is very good. There's more good than bad from what you've been hearing about the show, just saying out of the gate. On to my number 1, and this is going to come with a lot of IMDb down below on this one because I've yet to do a full review of this. I'll probably will when Season 2 drops, whenever, is Blue Eye Samurai. My last recommendation was going to be Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, mainly because I have yet to see the show. However, I am a big fan of the original movie. I have tried my best to get the original comics, and yes, I am very much aware of the misunderstandings of one Scott Pilgrim, so we'll get to that when I get to that Legacy review, hopefully later this year with old high school friends who are big fans of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. As for Blue-Eyed Samurai, it is a very fantastic show. It is from the same writers and creatives of, I think, Blade Runner 2049, and it is totally worth watching. It has a very stacked cast. I think the main character is going to be in the upcoming Mr. and Mrs. Smith adaptation with Donald Glover, so I highly recommend the cards there for the trailer. And the fact that she was an actor from Pen 15, I didn't think she had this much range for Mizu, the titled character, and it was amazing. It is a very good, accurate representation of Endo period Japan, specifically about Mr. A's heritage in that timeline and the culture around it. It was very eye-opening, and the action is very cool. There were some minor cringy needle drops, but when you see the action go forward into that needle drop, it was earned. It was very earned, very much so. Also, shout-outs to Randall Park being a late-in-the-game good villain voice actor that I didn't think he would do as far as celebrity forces go. Also, shout-out to Brendan Song. I won't give away her character. You'll probably find out in the IMDb down below. For pretty much a surprise sleeper hit role that I didn't think she would do this late in the game in her career. So kudos to her, too, and I hope she shows up in Season 2, if anything else. So, the fact that this is going to be longer than usual as far as this recording goes, let's breeze on through the worst list. There's no recommendations in the honorable mentions because I didn't have time to watch through any actually bad shows to sit through as a honorable mention to be like, oh, it could have been worse kind of vibes. However, most of the 4 out of the 5 shows I sat through, how do I say this nicely? For the recommendations, I recommend going to Friendly Space Ninja's top 10, or I guess top 5, whatever numbering he was doing for his worst shows. Any of those would have made the list just fine, personally speaking. So one of them is also going to be in a list, so we'll get to that in a minute. Let's get to Velma for my number 5. What hasn't been said about the show that hasn't already been said? Like I said with Razzle, they did a drunk commentary on the whole thing, and they were struggling, and you can definitely tell. No fault on Mindy Kelly's case. I don't want to put that against her. I know there have been a lot more hate on her voice for Velma. I feel like it's more on the writing front, not on her front. Maybe it's overproducing, most likely situation. I figured when the strikes were happening, I'd be a little more Diesel, who was really responsible making that adaptation of the Scooby-Doo gang. Will I ever be doing Scooby-Doo content in preparation for Season 2 of that? Don't hold out hope, but maybe. I might need to get a Scooby-Doo aficionado in the discourse on Trent's side of things, or people I've known over the years, maybe XLR, to give me a good rundown of is this going to be more mid than usual when it comes to Season 2. So we'll figure that out as we go along. On to my number 4, and these are shows I actually tried watching, just letting you know now, for Gotham Knights. Yeah, for the final show in the CW era of Batman-less TV shows, yeah, you could not gone any more worse than you already did. I'm pretty sure, I forgot the name of the guy's channel, V Infuser probably did a breakdown of the whole show, so I'll leave that in the cards, or if anything, his channel in the description down below. My knee-jerk review of it, if it wasn't for the strikes, I would be pretty much being more Jason shouty than usual with this one. The whole hook of it is basically the same thing like the game. It's basically what if Batman passed away through enemies in the past, and his kids have to figure it out. And one of them is a new kid. No, not Damian. Turner Hayes. Long story short, he was trying to be an OC character they were trying to will into the comics later down the road, but didn't really go anywhere. Misha Collins got absolutely wasted as a really good adaptation of Harvey Dent. So I don't know if he got around to be doing the makeup for Two-Face's, I think, later in the season. So I haven't finished the show there, and most likely, if they did, it's still a CW budget. So bated breath as usual when it comes to that. So on to my number 3, and this was again going to be a show I was actually going to review here on the channel, but kind of dropped out midway through the season. The True Lies CBS adaptation. For those who don't know, True Lies is actually started in life as a really decent Spanish comedy show, if I remember correctly, when I was Wikipediaing it. And for those here in the West know that it was also I think the only big-scale James Cameron action comedy he did with Schwarzenegger before becoming the governor of California later down the road in the 2000s. And one of the few James Cameron movies that have yet to get a 4K release, I believe, was that movie, the first Avatar, and until now, The Abyss, because I heard Abyss had a theatrical release in 4K. Good on you if you saw it. As for the show, it was pretty forgettable. It's a very standard CBS, how can we make a knockoff NCIS with like a limited budget kind of thing. I legitimately forgot the cast. I think the main guy that was playing Schwarzenegger's role was from Shameless. No, not Jamie Allen White. The other guy, I think, what's his name from The Alibi? Long story short there. Cast IMDb down below there because, again, I have not done a full review. So, last 2 is going to be The Idol. So, yeah, long story short, I'm very much aware of the insanity that it was creating that show. I'm very much aware it's the same guy that did Euphoria. And pretty much every Euphoria fan coming into the show has pretty much explained to me, or hasn't explained to me yet, but what I've seen online, that, yeah, he basically peaked after the first season. And from what I've seen, the highlights when it comes to the idol, again, go to Friendly Space Ninja's video essay on the whole thing. Yeah, you could definitely tell he peaked after the first season of Euphoria. It is a very messy shoot. I don't have time to explain the whole lore of it. I know The Weeknd was involved. The artist now, I guess, failing actor. That's a long story there. So let's get to number one because I got a very nice new year ahead of me. For my number one, I guess Marvel to Marvel here is Secret Invasion. So where do I begin? Mostly, have you, now that you probably have seen my Marvels review, a lot of people are absolutely right that two things have happened. Either this show has absolutely nothing to do with the Marvels going forward, or this show was supposed to be after the Marvels. So that's like the nicest way to say it for the timeline problems. As for the show running, it's okay. You have a stacked cast. But the fact they didn't want to commit to being the actual Secret Invasion from the comics that superseded after, I think, Civil War at the time, Marvel Comics-wise, is a whole mess of its own creation. The CG was all over the place when it came to the final episode. They absolutely wasted Emilia Clarke for what would have been a cool role if it wasn't for, like, the obvious recycled CG effects. But it made sense for, like, the super school aspect of it. I just wish it wasn't this show and maybe, like, I don't know, the Fantastic Four movie later down the road. But that is it for all of my recommendations and my best and worst shows for the year. And so much so that I have went out of my way to re-edit this list probably more than I usually would with a normal year when it comes to 2023 coming into now this new year. Happy 2024, by the way. Last, I guess, recommendations there to hopefully a more prosperous year. And with that all being said, go to my future review with the Black and Gold Dragon Zord here to sub the channel. 2024, new year, new who this, for sub the previous video here, Critical Role short, because I'm probably going to have my episode 81 out just in time before I think the second half of chapter 3 comes out Candela Xura-wise. I don't hold me to it, but I'm going to try my best to do Candela content leading up to this week's new chapter, if anything else. And with that all being said, take care, subscribe. I am Retrokid Reviews saying, so we're done with the time travel plot with this figure, right? Probably not, but we'll figure it out as we go along. And with that all being said, Happy New Year to my subscribers. Thank you again for 500 subs. And let's see how far we could go this year.